Locked On Sports Atlanta on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome to the Hawks POSTCAST, your home for the best Atlanta Hawks talk. It's quick hitting local insight after every game. You can't get anywhere but right here at Locked On. I'm your host, Tanisha Batiste. Alongside me is NBA and college basketball analyst Deshaun Tate. The Hawks POSTCAST is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. Another road game, another road win for the Hawks. We'll talk about how this one went sideways quickly, and we'll give you our takes on the 133-100 win over the Sacramento Kings tonight. They gave the Hawks their 5th road win and 7th win overall this season. And Tate, you kept it simple. You said the team rode the confidence wave.
And that they did. And that's kind of stemming a little bit from everything that this team has kind of implemented and put into position from over the course of the last few games. Obviously, now I think after you get to 2 wins, now on to 3, you can kind of call it a winning streak. So their first of the season is always feeling really good to say. And again, I'm always going to be the person to put this out on the forefront and on the table in front of everybody. Doing so without your star player in Trae Young, I think is really beneficial. But I actually thought that they were probably going to have a little bit more issues than they did in this game, to be honest with you. I know Sacramento's been struggling. They're now on a 4-game losing streak. But that roster that they have, at least within the starting 5, even though I think it's one of the more elder starting 5s that you have in the NBA. And while, the Atlanta Hawks is one of the more younger ones, I think they did a good job at, while doing so many things, utilizing their youth, their youthful legs, getting out into transition. And believe it or not, I mean, we're having a lot of conversations now about consecutive games of making their shots from the field, making their shots from 3, from the free throw line, still utilizing my hungry hippo narrative by outscoring the opposition in the paint, but also getting out on the break and transition and outscoring from fast break on the fast break. But I think lastly, one of the more impressive things outside of the fact that it was just far too many turnovers for my liking, which I think is still something to work with, but you have to understand that without Trae, things like that could happen. But this is also a team that stepped up its defense when it mattered the most. And I know we'll talk about that more a little bit later, but it was impressive.
Yeah, absolutely. And a couple of things that you pointed out, which I'll talk about, I'll expand on as well. But yeah, nearly 58% shooting from the field, nearly 43% shooting from the 3-point line, 82% shooting from the free throw line. 3-pointers, that is.
It's almost unrecognizable to be
like
honest
literally I'm watching the stat line and I'm like, and I know for you, free throws is probably the most exciting one. The fact that that's nearly 82%.
Know me well. Tell me you know me without telling me you know me.
This is true. So yeah, I like those numbers, as well as digging a little bit deeper into it too, is being able to play a clean game. I think walking out of this game with only 20 personal fouls, where it was a game where it seemed like the referees got a little bit trigger happy with the foul calling.
Yeah, they did.
But at times, but then somehow the Hawks really walked away with a clean game because no one was even remotely in jeopardy. Minus be crazy, but no one was really remotely in jeopardy of fouling out of this game. And then you see, just as you continue to look on the offensive side and defensive side, and guys, Deshaun and I are going to hold the defensive side of the ball and some of those stats and drilling down into those when we talk about a turning point. But ultimately speaking, it's what you see across the entirety of the stat line, where it's a total domination. And when you have that type of domination and you're starting to string together wins, it's just what you talked about. It's riding the confidence. It's the fact that you have 3 straight wins. It's the fact that you have 2 wins in a row on the road. It's the fact that you have 4 wins in the last 5 games. All of those things in the absence of your star, in the absence of your floor general, in the absence of the guy who makes it go, like, that's a beautiful thing. So again, you got to applaud these Hawks for what they were able to do in a 133. I know they wanted it to be 133-99 because it's nothing like keeping a team out of double digits, but 133-100 is still a good look when we talk about the fact that they're still in contention looking at cup play and you look at the margin of victory and you also look at the number of points scored, because all of those things matter. Now, for me, Tate, the take on tonight's game was when the Hawks moved the ball, good things happen. And one of the things that I thought was maybe one of the neatest stats that I've ever seen is that the Hawks moved the ball with 200 passes and an average of 18.29 miles per hour on each pass through 3 quarters.
How about that?
Run and run some more. Like, that's the name of the game for this Hawks team. I really, really love and appreciate that I saw that out of them. And I'm hoping that that's kind of will continue to be the pace that they play at, because when you're playing at that pace, then you're looking at, like you said, fast break points, outscoring, not only scoring 33, but outscoring your opponent 33-8 with fast break points, because it means that you are dictating the pace on your end, but you're also making sure that you're getting back and dictating the pace on their end as well. And points in the paint can be a little bit deceptive because they outscored the Kings, the Hawks did 56-44. But on that same token, what I love about what we saw is the fact that they were scoring inside, even in transition. So again, I think that the Hawks are finding ways to win these games, and they're starting to really move at the pace that we thought we would see them move at earlier in the season.
Well, again, I have to mention that I think that's probably the most impressive thing, is that you're doing this without the star player, and it's so happening so early in the season, and you're playing so many, new guys that are playing in a Hawks uniform either for the first time or for the second season in their career. And you have to rely on those guys, and you have to develop and establish chemistry. All those things are really tough to do when you don't have not only a star player, but you don't have, the guy with the bulk of experience, the guy that kind of stirs the drink, I guess, to a degree, and what have you. And so even more so, I think every player that, checked into the game on tonight scored. I think over 7 players were in double digits. They, converted on over, 15 plus 3-pointers on tonight. Luke Kennard was hot, and just kind of getting guys into a rhythm. I know it sounds kind of crazy to say, and it's probably, I don't know, hopefully I won't, but might regret saying this a little bit later, but I think we may have seen the worst look of the Atlanta Hawks in the first 10 games or so already this season. I think just going forward, they're just going to continue to improve. They're going to continue to elevate their game. Are there going to be some mishaps here and there, some minor miscues, and some games that they probably would anticipate that they, wouldn't lose, that there's going to be some of those moments. I mean, that's kind of expected. But I think just in terms of the worst type of play for consecutive games anyways, I think that those days are over with for the Atlanta Hawks, and that they are finally able to put together some things because of the chemistry that they're building and still yet establishing with one another.
Yeah, and might I say too that I think being able to talk about all the players scoring and talking about the clip at which they scored, thinking about Jalen Johnson being able to score 24 points in 24 minutes, and thinking about Onyeka Okongwu doing exactly the same, scoring 21 points in 21 minutes, albeit off the bench. None of these guys tonight played more than 27 minutes, that of Dyson Daniels, who played the most. Why is that important? Because the Hawks are on a back-to-back headed to Utah, right? Mm-hmm. So when you think about that, and the fact that they'd already sent a couple players back to Atlanta because, of course, College Park Skyhawks are getting ready for their season opener, I think that's also important as well. Like, sometimes we may not agree or may not always be able to comfortably and confidently follow some of the movement that Quinn Snyder has in terms of his rotation. But ultimately speaking, I think I also like the fact that this game was called so very early that Quinn Snyder was able to give just about everybody 20 minutes on the court.
I was about to check in, see if they had a medium-sized uniform in the back.
Right, because literally it was like, okay, Quinn Snyder. But again, that's kind of the thought process of, hey, What are you guys going to do knowing the two of your guys, Top and apologies for forgetting the second guy, but there are two guys that are headed to College Park for the Skyhawks game Friday night. It's like, okay, well, what is that going to mean? Your hope is that Porzingis doesn't have to play hard, long and hard, or any of the starters for that matter, even a Nickeil Alexander-Walker coming back off of being down back-to-back games due to a bad back. You don't want him to have to overextend himself. So being able to play just 22 minutes, I think that was good for Alexander-Walker as well. And then again, just for this game to have gotten out of hand when it did was a good thing, because guess what? By virtue of these guys not having to play that much, we saw our turning point earlier than later tonight. This episode of our Locked on Hawks postcast is brought to you by FanDuel. And of course, we appreciate you guys also for making the Hawks Postcast your first listen of the day. And thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. So now the NBA, it is back. And there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Now, even if you miss the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who'll score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. So right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel. So again, even if you miss the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you even combine your live bets into a same game parlay, and it keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA.
This episode of the Locked On Hawks postcast is brought to you by Built. Of course, nobody likes to pay rent, but of course, if you must, you might as well get something for it, right? That's where Built comes in. Built is changing the game by turning your rent payment into real rewards that you can actually use. Who doesn't love that? I know that I do. I'm sure that you will too. Just got to make sure that you create that account with Built. So when you do pay your rent through Built, you earn flexible points that can be redeemed toward hundreds of hotels and airlines, a future rent payment, your next Lyft ride, perhaps, maybe, and even more. But Built isn't just about rent. It's also about rewarding you around your entire neighborhood. So be sure to share this with all of your friends, share this with your family. It's going to be a critical time with the holidays coming up and so forth. Why not do something that can pretty much simplify any and everything, including your life, and making sure that you're keeping that roof above your head? Turn your rent into rewards and start earning points around your neighborhood by going to joinbuilt.com/lockedonnba. That's joinbilt.com/lockedonnba. Make sure to use that link so that they know we sent you.
This episode of our Locked On Hawks postcast is also brought to you by Mint Mobile. If you're still overpaying for wireless, it's time to say yes to saying no. At Mint Mobile, their favorite word is no. No contracts, no monthly bills, no overages, no hidden fees, no BS. I said yes to making the switch and getting premium wireless for just $15 a month. Mint makes it simple. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You can even bring your own phone and keep your same number and contacts. And you'll love that you're getting the same quality service you had before, but for a fraction of the price. The setup is super easy. You kept your number, and then you're running in minutes. So ready to say yes to saying no? Make that switch at mintmobile.com/lockedonnba. That's mintmobile.com/lockedonnba. Upfront payment of $45 required, equivalent to $15 per month. Limited time, new customer offer for first 3 months only. Speeds may slow above 35 gigs or on unlimited plan. Taxes and fees extra. See Mint Mobile for details. So after the Kings cut the Hawks' double-digit lead down to just 3 points at the end of the first quarter, it was all gas, no breaks to turn the game in the second period.
Time to reveal where the game was won or lost. It's the turning point.
Deshaun, it got a little bit scary because we saw the Hawks go out to this big lead. We saw them have a 14-2, then 16-4 run, 18-5, and we're thinking, okay, Hawks, you're doing the darn thing. Hawks tying their season quarter high with 37 points in that first quarter. But all of a sudden, the Hawks have some quirky things that happen. They get outperformed by the Kings and steals by 3 in that first quarter, and that's one of the things that the Kings were able to do to end that quarter 37-34. But give so much credit to the Hawks for coming right back and really reestablishing themselves in that second quarter and ultimately holding the Kings to a paltry 12 points. And the Hawks still scored 29 points, by the way, in that quarter. And I feel like that's the moment where the Hawks said, yeah, we kind of took our foot off the gas. Yeah, we kind of let you back into the game in the end of the first quarter. But they really reset. They buckled down. They got disciplined. And I really think that was game.
If there's a such thing as being finding some kind of solace or positivity, optimism, is probably the fact that this didn't happen in the third quarter, because I'm not so sure that things wouldn't have completely gone off the rail had it happened in the third quarter. For whatever reason, the second quarter just really kind of appears to be the time that the Atlanta Hawks have been able to find a way to get into, having some spurts within themselves. Sometimes in the first quarter, things are a little bit shaky. They don't always get off to a fast start. We already talked about the third quarter. The second quarter, I think, is starting to become one of those very pivotal ones, or one of those ones that I really feel like is where they can kind of make their mark and kind of get off to a start to where they already have a little bit of a feeling, gotten through, as if this is boxing, the first couple of rounds of warming up, if you will. Once you start getting into the meat and potatoes or the nuts and bolts of the next quarter, I think is where we kind of learn so much. Maybe not everything about the Hawks, but a lot of times in the second quarter where they can kind of set the pace for how they believe that not only the game is going to go, but that they need it to go. So, give them credit. Obviously, they stepped up their defense in the second half, amongst other things. But to be able to get out to a lead and then appeared to have that diminished to some degree, cutting that deficit down, being the Sacramento Kings. It takes a lot in order to kind of stave opponents off and then end up winning a game as confidently as they did on tonight. So you definitely got to give them some credit there. And listen, I mean, being able to finish, being able to start is one thing, but being able to finish, and I think that definitely needs to be highlighted. But that second quarter, I think, can tend to get a little, I think is going to be one that the Atlanta Hawks is going to find a way to play into their favor moving forward, because this isn't the first game this season where we've seen that, not even the first game this week where we have seen them execute and take advantage of it.
Yeah, I'm very impressed because we know that halftime is when coaches tend to make their adjustments, whether that's adjustments in the rotation, whether that's adjustments on the other team's best or second best player, whether that's adjustments in terms of how you're running your offense or your defense. So to be able to reset between quarters, I thought was really impressive of Quinn Snyder. And like I said, they reset at both ends because or reset at the defensive end while maintaining what they were able to do offensively, because the Hawks dropped 37 in the first quarter, but allowed the Kings to drop 34. But then they turned around and they limited the Kings to just 12 points in that second quarter, Deshaun, but yet they were able to maintain their offensive efficiency by scoring 29 in the quarter. So when you look at the way they were able to do it by turning over the Kings 7 times in that quarter, I mean, that's very impressive. And being able to hold them to a paltry 18.2% shooting from the field goal, from the 3-point line, 14%, just 2 of 14. And then also being able to say, hey, not only are we going to do that, but we're going to keep you limited at the defensive side of the court. the Hawks were still able to out-rebound the Kings. Hawks also were able to keep up with them pound for pound in steals. They both had 4 steals in that quarter. So I just think what the Hawks were able to do on the defensive side of the ball, and then for the most part, keep themselves effective offensively was impressive. The Hawks were able to shoot 52% from the field, 43% from the three-point line. They were able to still move the ball. I talked about that a little bit earlier. Assists that we saw the Hawks end with, it wasn't something to where we just saw ball movement in one quarter. We saw ball movement in all 4 quarters, but the Hawks in the game, if you will, with a whopping 42 assists to Sean, and they got 10 of them in that second quarter. So I think, that's one of my favorite things. I love to hear that the ball is moving from side to side, moving left to right, and that the ball isn't sticking to one player's hands, or that the team is deciding, hey, we're just going to let one guy take it 94 feet and let's just see what happens. I like the fact that there was that kind of movement, but again, very impressive to see that not only were the Hawks able to impose their will defensively against the Sacramento Kings team in that second quarter, but they were also able to maintain their effectiveness on offense.
I think the last thing I was saying, I'm glad that you really brought that up, is because, that's something that I can really tell that this team has been working on improving. I used to see a lot of games where other teams moved the ball, and force the defense, the opposition to work, and the Atlanta Hawks was really kind of struggling with that. Now it seems like they're kind of taking a page out of the book from other teams and just learning how to win. To win is one thing, but I didn't always feel like they were learning how to win basketball games. I feel a lot more confident and comfortable with being able to say that these teams know how to do that, if not nothing else, against teams that they are supposed to do that against. And that is just one example of that on tonight. So, being able to space the floor and efficiently move the ball. We have to work on doing it without turnovers, but just to be able to share the sugar amongst everybody else and getting guys good shots, finding the wide open guys, finding guys that are on backdoor cuts and screens. And just, sometimes I think it's kind of risky to do some of these cross court passes and things of that nature, but they seem to have been working very well and forcing the defense to move. By the time that ball gets ready to go in the basket, the defense is tired to even set up their offense. So I think that that's just one of the positives. And I'm not totally mad about the people who feel like that happens a lot more efficiently when, for whatever reason, when Trae just doesn't happen to be in the game. I got to wake that up, because that is something that does appear to be a real thing. And I don't think this is the first time people are seeing it.
Yeah. It's something that team has to work on, and probably something that takes a little more time and a little more nuance of a conversation than we have. But Trae's going to be out for a little bit longer, so I'm sure that conversation will resurface. But a lot of credit to Robert Blackman, because he called out just what you called out as well, which is we like to see the ball movement, but the people movement is just as important. Spacing is absolutely something that is impressive, because it talks about what you're able to do as a team effectively when the ball is not in your hands. The Hawks Postcast is the #1 place to hang out after every game, and is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So remember to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And for more on the Hawks, head over to Locked On Hawks with our guy, Brad Rowland. We'll see you next time.